Right, good evening and welcome back to our second half. I must admit, even I have found the first half very interesting. It brings you memory, even if you use Lightroom and Photoshop very regularly, it brings your mind back to those things that you don't use every day, but you know that they're there, but you forget that they're there if you're following the drift. So it's good to have a refresher now and again, just to show you what you'd forgotten. I think anybody that uses Photoshop and Lightroom would say the same thing as I'm about to say, and that is that we probably use, I don't know, 15%, somewhere around there, of the power of the program. So it is something that is very and extremely powerful, and we all use those bits of it that we know. So I'm sure that you'll agree with me that what we've done already is of a tremendous use. Brian's got one or two things lined up for you in the second half already. You'll see him flicking through his images. He's just getting one or two bits ready. So it's hence the reason it's just flicking about a bit. Jill Pardo was first this time back in the room, so good on you. We're getting everybody back again. I hope, as I've just said earlier, that Michael Hudson says the heating's come on automatically. It must be getting chilly. So I must admit ours definitely hasn't come on, because until Monday we haven't got any. We've been waiting 6 weeks for a new boiler to be fitted, so they're coming on Monday to fit it. So I think that's just about at the right time. So everybody's coming back in. Welcome back to everybody. And as I've just said, Brian's going to be going through a few more things. He's going to show us a little bit on creating an action. It won't be a complicated action, because actions do take a little while to do. I see Caroline's just top. Oh, that's the wrong Caroline. That's Caroline and Dave. Caroline O was asking the question earlier about actions, and it is something that is very, very handy if you've got actions, because it saves you remembering what you did last time. So consequently, an action does quite a bit of the work for you if you're a person who uses something on a regular basis to get you to an end result. So it gives you the basis of that. So Ray's just saying he's had his central heating all overhauled as well. So good evening, Michael Hughes. I don't know, I'd never noticed you was with us in the first half, Michael, so apologies if I didn't say a hello. So right, we're about back up to numbers, and we're about to set off on the second half. I'm just going to let Brian just finish off doing his first bits, and I'm just going to remind people that tonight is the final night for the President's Challenge. That's what I set earlier in the year, although I changed it because of the situation we're in. So I have made it very simple for you this year, and just made it an open competition, but did remind you all to make sure that you chose your absolutely top-notch images. So I'm looking forward to having a look at those and judging them accordingly. So right, I'm going to hand over to Brian again now. We're a little bit short of numbers. People will and always do sort of come back over the next 5 minutes, but I'll let Brian do his beginning of his introduction for the second half, So over to you, Brian.
Right, I just thought I'd start by mentioning what I will probably do before anything else. I'll probably use the crop feature in crop overlay in Lightroom, and I always have a grid up. It'll either be the thirds grid, or I may well use the golden ratio grid. The reason I use the two is it depends how my original composition in the eyepiece fits which grid. Whichever one's closest to it, I will work with that one. I prefer the golden ratio grid, if anything, but I will use one or the other. So I'm going to just put it back to the crop overlay of thirds. But I'm not too worried about that at the moment. But what I want to do with this one is, can you see this pillar here is not upright? Now that is not a pillar that's not upright. That does not want correcting in the other area down here. This one's correcting with this side here, just by dragging this round. Now as you drag that round, can you see the grid building up? Now if you just drag that until, if you're looking at the screen now, you should be able to see that pillar is virtually parallel to the white line to the left of it.
Yep.
And that is going to give you, that's going to do all you need to do with that. Alternatively, you can use this tool here just to say, okay, it's perhaps that's what you've decided is the horizon line, and whichever you're going to choose to use. So either use a horizon line or just use a crop tool like that. I tend to leave that locked, I must be honest with you. So I'm going to just get out of this one, do Control Z a few times till it comes back to original. That's it. I'm going to do it again now with that locked. And then I'm just going to, as I hover around here, it eventually turns to a little arc with two arrows on it, and then I can rotate it, and just watching that, I'm just watching that pillar relative to the line to its left and right, and I've got it parallel now, that's fine. So I'm just using that to create, to make sure I'm not messing about with things that I don't need. If you do this in Photoshop and you start doing that kind of trick, you might end up getting white lines around it. So I prefer to do it in Lightroom because it works better for me. I mean, okay, you can fill the white bits in intelligently in Lightroom, in Photoshop if you want to, but let's not bother with that. Let's just give this a bit of quick processing. I'm going to click and go through it the hard way because I've not set up any actions for this one. So it's just worked out what lens I've used. I'm going to do some basic processing of the Adobe color there. I'm going to go for, I think it was cloudy on this particular event. No, it's too heavy. Go for daylight. That'll do. Auto. That's fine. I'm not too fussed. I want to get some blacks up there, so I'll just get a little bit of black in there. That's got that. That's fine. Notice now I've just got a bit of blue. Can you just see underneath there?
Yeah.
That's where that is now affecting it. And if you don't want that there, that's fine. You can just bring it backwards. Disappears. I actually.
Can I just interrupt you there? Excuse me. Dane has just asked, what was the last action you clicked there once the image was rotated? What did you do? I wasn't sure what you did just after that, so I can't help you on that one. I don't know whether you can remember or not.
After I rotated this?
Yes.
Let's go back. Right, I clicked on the lens. I went to lens first of all and clicked to remove chromatic aberration and enable the lens profile, and that brought up the lens I'd used and corrected for that one. Now this is actually using Adobe's, there are options, if you get really clever, you can use Adobe's option or various other options down there, but I suppose Sigma might be the best one. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. That's going to be pretty accurate. So that was the first thing I did. Then I brought the basic panel up, and I would look at the colour, and I tend to use, say, Adobe colour. You use what you like. If you does this hover? No, it doesn't hover, unfortunately. Actually, have to click on it. Can you see it's changing the colours?
Yeah. Dane's just put another comment on. It was just after, it was once the post was lined up, you clicked on the image centered. Image centered, yeah. So I think would you do what I do? You double click on the image to crop.
Yeah. So I click on that.
Did when you line the?
I did this bit.
Yeah, we had a little blackout then, but yeah. Now I think he might mean what did you do? And don't you do the same as myself, where you double click in the area and it just crops?
I just let go. Oh, sorry, no. What do I do after it's done that?
Yes.
If it doesn't matter what you do after that, if you just click on the tool, done. Click on done. It's at the bottom there. Of course, done.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So.
And that's fine. Just click on done. Double click will do it, but I tend to use the screenshot hints if I can see them and remember them.
Yeah.
So okay. So then I would go custom. I might. There's nothing in here where I can sort of look at it and say, well, I could say that should be grey over there. So I could do a sample on that, or that, or that. That's giving it a green cast, so that looks better. Say done again with that. That's just done a sample to try and collect the colour of it. Click on the old auto. Let's just move those a bit. That's probably gone a bit underexposed. I'm going to just tweak that up a little bit. Bring the whites up to there and back down again. Blacks down just so they get a full black. And then I'll nip over into Photoshop. I'm going to go into Photoshop now, and I'm still going to open it as a smart object. But as we go over there, notice a bit of red in there, so that means I've got some overexposure of the whites at that point in time, just in there. But I'm going to get rid of that anyway, so that's not a problem. Okay, so there's my image. I'll do what I did before, but this time I'll do it from here. So I'm going to go Filter, and I'm going to come down to Nick Collection, and hope this is going to work. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to go for Define To. And what I'm going to do is to wait till it's finished messing about. It's analysed it. Notice it's put these areas in here that it thinks are crucial, and that's the ones it's sampling, because it's had a look at everything all around here, and it's sampled those three there, and it thinks that's where the big noise areas are. So if we now click on Reduce, that's actually reduced your noise in those areas. If you want to have another go, just click Measure again, and do another reduce, and it's chosen different areas this time. So I'll reduce again, and then that sorted it out. So I'll be happy with that. I'll just say OK, because that's before. You see all the noise on this side. You see how little there is that side that it comes through. Is that happy enough for that one?
Yeah. Would you always come into your Define to do noise reduction rather than Lightroom or Photoshop?
I prefer to use it here, yes, but it's a personal preference.
Yep.
Photoshop is very good these days. Sorry, Lightroom is very good these days. I wouldn't worry in Photoshop personally. I'd rather do it in Lightroom. But I always use Define in here, and I think it's more. I mean, if I'd got the latest version, it might even be better still. But I think again, because I can go back into this. And I can say to it, I think I can use control points in this one. Can I? Yes, I can add control points here. So I could say add a control point here. There we go. Come on, back to normal. Oh, there we are. Oh, and we get it back to normal. Escape. Yeah, that'll do. That's gone out of there. Okay. But you should be able to use control points to stop it doing noise reduction on certain areas. If it's softening something, then you should be able to reduce the noise on it. So let's see. I'm going to add a negative point on there. And if I drag this out a bit, can you see the circle that's there now? It's a big circle.
Yeah.
You see it there around the outside? I can't point to it without losing it. So
Yeah.
so that's the size that it's looking at. But if I then go back into uh, somewhere over here, I don't know how I can display that one. Try control. Anyway, it's created that mask around this area, and it's taken the noise reduction off that area. I just can't see how I can display it.
The thing is, with noise reduction, it does its job, but it's not visible when you want to show somebody else.
No, I mean, can you see that if you look at the left-hand, right-hand side of the bottom colour in the loop, can you see how there's much more definition on the right-hand side than there is on the left?
Yes, definitely.
Does that make sense again?
Yep.
So as I'm moving around there,
Yep. Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So that's taking it away from that area. So okay, I've done my noise reduction. There's it's probably a full night looking at Nick. I mean, although only used core effects, I mean the one that actually is most possibly one of the best ones is Viveza. So if we look, I haven't used it for a while, so anything can go wrong with this one. These are your global controls here. So if I drag this one up a bit, it's brightening everything. And the whole point about this idea is that you brighten things, then you add control points, and you get rid of the brightness in certain areas. So let's see. We can warm it up a little bit by just dragging that slightly to the right. Too much. Let's take it down a little bit. Structure. That's sharpness. Look at the background. How bad the background's gone now. Okay. So let's just bring that back to about there, and then we can add a control point. So see, if you can only see what you're seeing on the screen, because you can't see the damn things. Where's the control point? Come on, I haven't done this for a while. Here we are, add control point up there, and hopefully. Now, if I remember rightly with this one, you can actually see what it's doing. So see, I thought you could.
It's the same with all of these programs. They're so powerful that to remember every single little nick and cranny.
I mean, I don't use it often enough, so there we are. Okay, so where it's white, it's not being applied. So I can now put this around the outside here a bit more. I'm using the Alt key to duplicate again, and I think with a bit of luck, click on that again. That stopped the crunchiness in the background, but left the sharpening in the area where I want it.
Yeah.
So that's the bonus of using this. And again, you can do all sorts of bits and tricks in here. You really need to look up some tutorials on what it can and can't do. But these control points are the most interesting things for me. I know one of them actually you can hold the key down, you can see where the damn things are. But others you have to switch it on down here and mess about. But so if we switch that on, that's showing all the control points we've added so far. You can group them together. So you can see there's 3 there. If you just drag over like that, then you can call them a group. So see, it's at the top somewhere, is it? Yeah, group.
Yeah.
And now I think as you alter one, it alters them all. Can you see them all altering?
Oh, yep. Yep.
So as you drag that across, you can. Okay, so I'll just say okay.
Yeah.
So you can get into everything from here. And again, because it's a smart object, it's creating layers down here, which are still editable, which is the main thing.
Just for the people that don't have Nick Collection, we've just got a question come in. Can you explain the noise reduction in Lightroom and possibly what you would think the best way of using it would be.
I can tell you Nick's still available.
Yeah, I must admit, you can still get it, can't you?
Yeah, it's buried. And if you can't get it from there, I'm sure you can find a man who knows a man. It's free because it was the original version. It's still free. Yeah, back into Lightroom. Yeah, okay. Let's just get rid of this lot then. Let's go close on that one and say no. Bring it back into Lightroom. And we'll look at the detail selection, this is the area where it's all done. So that's the area here. And if I click up that, I'll get this sorted out. Since I don't do this very often, I have to work out how to do it. Now, can you see the noise in there?
Mm-hmm.
So what we need to be able to do now is I'm going to close that down so I can see a bit more here. Now this is the noise area. It's applied a 30 to it, so I'm going to take that off. Okay, see how much crunchier it is now?
Yep.
So that's what is actually there now. So you can drag this across here and you can go to where it's silly. But if we look at this area here, it's softening that as well. So let's just pull that back. That's where it was. Nice detail. That's as we drag that across, it's getting softer. So this is the problem with noise reduction. It's a trade-off between sharpness and noise. So that's why when I'm into things like Nick Effects, I will apply the noise to the background, but not to the subject. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I still want to keep the detail in the subject.
Yeah.
And so I'll choose areas where I can see the noise and get rid of it rather than do it globally.
Yeah.
Now this is almost doing it globally, but there is this. There isn't a masking thing in there, is there?
No, I don't think there is, Brian.
I was just thinking there was, but there isn't. You can change it by using this slider. This does make a bit of difference to things. You can pull that up.
The only thing you could do again is use your radial filter or something like that, just to select an area.
So I mean, being honest with you, the noise reduction here tends to be global, and it's not as effective as going into Nick. Anyway, but that's beside the point. It can be done here. I mean, holding the Alt key down is a good thing because that allows you to see what's going on quite good. It turns everything into monochrome, and when you let go, it brings the colour back, so you can sort of see what's going on. So let's take the detail down to 0. But it's really softening this area here for me. It's doing too much. So I can probably bring something back with the it's a case of looking at what these are going to do. This is for luminance noise. This is the one form of noise. That's for colour noise. I tend not to touch the colour noise. It's very, very rare I'll go into there. What I do like about this one is the sharpening thing, where I don't know how many use sharpening, but let's bring it back to there. Sharpening allows you to sort of look at how crisp the image is coming here. Changing the radius makes a difference. So you, what have I done there? Nothing. That's showing you how big an area it's sharpening. Can you see the the shape of the creature coming out?
Yeah.
That's affecting that area. And this is, if you're not careful, if you drag that too far, that's when you get your haloing. So be a bit careful on that one. We've got the detail one here, which enables you to bring out a bit more detail of it. But this is the one that I tend to use. So whatever, I would normally do this to standard. And then I would sort of look at this one. Now I like to drag that right to the right hand side near enough, because this is what we call edge sharpening. It's only going to sharpen the bits where it's white, which is the edges around it. Now the further you drag that, the less edges there are to sharpen. And really that's the only bit that wants sharpening. Now you can give that some welly and that won't matter, that'll be fine. because it's not affecting this background area. So it's not enhancing the noise in the background. If we don't have that working, then as we drag that across, that noise is getting worse. If you look in this area here again,
Yep.
as I drag that across, can you see it getting even more crunchy? But as I drag the mask across, that softens that area. If
Yep.
you look at this area here, drag that to there, then can you see even that's getting crunchy, isn't it?
Yep.
And as we bring the masking slider across, it's sorting that out.
Yep.
So that masking slider is a crucial thing for me. So if I'm going to do my sharpening in Lightroom, I'll hammer a lot of that. I tend to do this up to about 75, 80, something like that. These I tend to keep about 1, and I think what's the default on that one? 25. I tend to leave those as default initially.
Yeah.
I will move that one probably, but then I will definitely have a go on this one here and drag that across. And as far as noise is concerned, I tend to sort of hope that's going to, I think it sets it about 25 normally.
When Dane's just said, when you did the edge sharpening, did you select the Alt and drag the masking, or just
Yes.
you did press the Alt?
Holding the Alt key down and clicking on that turns it to monochrome, and you can see where the edge is.
Right. Yeah.
So as you drag that to the left, there is no edge, so it's sharpening everything. As
Yep.
you drag it to the very right, excuse me, it's only sharpening that little bit you can see now.
Yep.
And somewhere around here is really where you want to be.
Yeah. So yes, Dane, Brian did hold the Alt key down.
And just clicking it on and off, it's subtle.
Yep.
Okay, go back into Photoshop. Keep going into the Smart Object. Excuse me. It's beer o'clock and I haven't done it yet.
Yeah. I must admit, when I'm doing something like you are, you don't have time to have a drink, do you? Because you have to keep talking.
Right. I said I was doing about editing things out. So there's this piece here, and there's a buttercup just there, for instance. Those are trivial things, but I just want to get rid of those two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a blank layer above here, and I'm going to do all of my cloning out on that layer, or another layer as well, possibly. So I'm going to look at that area there. I've zoomed in a bit, and I'm now going to get my healing tool, which is over here, and set it just a little bit shorter than it is. I've got a 200 brush up here, which is a soft edge brush. Can you see it's a soft edge brush? My mode is normal. It's using content aware, hopefully. And I'm just going to click over that area there, and I'm happy. It's gone near enough for me. If I wasn't happy, I could Control Z. I would go into the clone tool, and I would then try and start a lot smaller brush. I'm going to sample just to the left of that, in that area. Says here I'm going to sample just there. It's going to get a bit tricky. There's something in the way there. And I'm now going to come back here, line it up, and just paint over it. Now, a judge might see that if he's got very good eyesight, but I don't think he will, so I just take another piece and clone over the top of it from somewhere else. So, could it, no matter where I take it, I could take it from up there even. And just patch it in so it's a little bit less obvious. So I use two methods of cloning. My first technique is I go straight for the healing tool, healing brush, and I see if that works. A nice little dodge with a healing brush. Suppose you wanted to get rid of this black line here. Set your brush just slightly wider than that, and click at that end. Now hold the shift key down and go and click onto the other end. No, it hasn't done it. Try it again. Let's try Control Z. Start at this end, click, No, it's not working on this occasion. But usually for a straight line, that's the best way to get rid of it. Is to actually create. If I just show you here, it's created a line straight through there, and normally that will hide a multitude of sins. It won't work on this one, so what I'd end up having to do with this one is I would use the I would just create a bit of a gap here by using, oh, I can see why I'm not using the right tool. Start again, try again, click, click. That's better. It doesn't do it the first time, do it again. Click, click, hold shift down, click. And you can do it several times. It won't matter, it'll just keep improving. Right, it's being damned awkward this time. I mean, you just have as many goes as you like, because it won't make any difference. And the good news is if you don't like what you've done, it's been done on a layer. So you can either turn the layer off and see what you've done, or you can throw the layer away. I mean, it's left a bit of a gap there. So you might just take a piece using the clone tool, just take a piece from, say, just there, and just patch it in just there. Just that one little piece, just to finish it off.
Yep.
And it's tricks like that you'll pick up as you go along that make getting rid of objects that much easier. If you start doing it fairly heavy-handedly with hard-edged brushes and things like that, judges will see it. Now, whereas I'm not too worried about judges, they don't want to see tricks like that because they're going to notice that. If you've got this one on the outside here, I think the clone tool will work on that one, so just click on the clone tool, I'll just drag over there twice and it's gone. One down here, drag on that one, gone. Bit of grass there, gone. And nobody's going to notice things like that, but it's just going to stop. I mean, that yellow on this corner, just enough for the judge having seen the eye, think it's looking over there, oh look, there's a daisy, you know, buttercup, whatever. Just stopping him doing that is worthwhile.
Yep.
If you wanted to, you could do it on this building here if you wanted to as well. It would work. You can try the control. I'm using the square brackets, by the way, to grow the brush. Just click at the top. Just click at the bottom. Not bad. Not bad for a first attempt.
Yep.
If you want to improve on it, get your clone tool. Start from just there. Hold the Alt key down, and just a bit of bar in, and there you are, you got your fence rebuilt. That thing on the right hand side is gone. Okay?
Yep. Just
Is that okay for everybody that's following the sort of tricks?
Yeah, I believe so. We've had no more questions come through. Only Doreen.
That's because they've gone to sleep.
Oh no, only Doreen saying you won't want too many drinks before you start processing. The one thing you was doing, going to show us, was a very quick,
Action.
simple action.
Right, so let's bring the actions. Actions are somewhere over here. I'm going to put it back into the original mode, which is there. And at the bottom here, we have a variety of tools. I think this is the record one.
Yep.
If we click on that, just put that out of the way for a minute. And then what I'm going to do is to go up here, filter. I'm going to do the denoise thing, so I'm going to do define. Oh, control D. Okay, let's just get rid of that for a moment. It's probably still recording. Let me just have a look.
You've got your background layer highlighted. You need to go on to your lower layer.
I've hidden the actions as well. I moved them over there, they disappeared. View, actions, window, actions, somewhere down here, there we are. Okay, so I need to switch that off and start again. I didn't give it a name anyway, I thought I was supposed to give it a name. Anyway, what I do now is I'm going to try and dock that into there, and I'm going to flatten this image. So I'll put it onto one layer. Now I'm going to do my action, just to be easier for me. So I'm going to start on a new layer, hopefully. Oh, there's not a new action button down there, so we'll try this one, see what happens. And we'll now out of the way. We go filter, define, and we'll say reduce. Okay. And we'll do filter, Nick, color effects. Now this has a memory, it always brings up the last thing we've used, so I'm going to change that for the detail extractor. I'm just going to leave it a little bit basic like that and say OK.
So just to explain to the members, what Brian is doing now is basically like a verbal recorder. Anything that he clicks during the time since he pressed that original button, the Photoshop is recording his actions, not his voice of course, but his actions, so that it's remembering everything he's done, and when he finalizes it, that will remember those actions to repeat when he asks them to be repeated.
So I'm going to now stop it. I'm going for the stop button this time. Hopefully that, and it hasn't asked me for a name, has it? So somewhere along the line I missed something out. Oh, I see. Silly me. Go over there, control there, control there. I see where it is. I forgot to do add. That's where I give it the name.
Yeah.
I knew I should be able to give it a name, and I couldn't understand why. So I've done that again. I've recorded that. So click record. Okay, it's doing it now. So I'm going to go quickly what I did before.
So whilst Brian's doing that, whilst you're doing an action, it doesn't matter how long it takes you. You can think about it. You don't have to rush. You can think about what you've done, and as you go along, everything you do actually change. Those actions are remembered and recorded, so that when you finalize it, all you do is to click the button and it will repeat everything you do. That is as simple or as complicated as you make it. So if you have, I don't know, 30 actions including vignettes and other things, it will remember it all. The only thing that you do want to remember is if you create an action that includes things like cloning, etc., be very careful, because it will follow those things through on your next image. So you can't do things like cloning, and you can't really do things like cropping, etc., unless you have a multitude of images which are exactly the same and want the same cropping. So just think about what you're doing prior to actually carrying out the action that you're going to do. So, you know, it is a little bit more complicated, but just think about what you're doing.
I've just put the two things in there, so now I'm going to stop it, and that should, hopefully, it's there now.
Yep.
So if I now pull that away and then delete these two, delete, delete, delete. And now if I click on the actions, at the very bottom here, there's something called new action. If I click on that and say play, it should do those two actions. There's define coming in.
The big advantage with doing actions is that if you have a specific that you like your images to take on, say Brian had done a certain type of sharpening within this image, or like he has with these define, etc., as you saw it just click, then he's not done anything other than click the play button and it's done it for him.
And then if I put it back to this other mode, which is called button mode, my actions are down the bottom here in the black lines. So these are the actions that I've built in. All these are Nick ones. Sorry, Photoshop ones. So I can put a vignette. Oh, feather is not currently available. Okay. Should have been. I didn't build it. So, I mean, I don't know what these do. Let's try a sepia turning. Yeah. There's another action that they built. And if you don't like it, which I don't, Control Z till you get out of it. That's just building an action. We've looked at using some of the clone tools. What else might I do over here?
Just a quick one. We're just coming up to 5-2, so if you've got any further questions for Brian before we finish, if you could jot them down into the chat now, and I'll be able to ask Brian before we go. Either Brian or myself will be able to hopefully answer your questions.
I suppose we could have done a board around it, an edge. That would have been a useful action.
Yeah.
So if we were to do, let's start again, create that, go into the other mode, otherwise we can't do it. Add one, and we'll call it white line border. Two capitals there we don't require, but it doesn't really matter. Control A to select all, and go to edit, stroke, 5-point of white, inside the line, say OK. Control D to get rid of the border. Come back here, say stop, and then go back into button mode. Undo it, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, and we now come into here. We have a new one that says white line, and there we are. Just on that one click, it's done it. So if you're doing PDIs, that's quite good. Oh, what you did say, Graham, was I'll go back into Lightroom just for a quickie. So I'll go back into Lightroom. Shut that down. Right, okay, so the last thing we really ought to look at is how you get out of Lightroom to print or to save it for whatever reason. If we go back to the library, then suppose we want to save this image for a PDI. So I go to export to do that, and then I come into this area here. Now I've closed quite a few bits down. I've closed down file naming, video, and a couple of other things, but what I'm going to do first of all is it says where does it want to go. Now this is me being lazy. I have this file called coronavirus walks, which is where I've been throwing all my recent images. So I created this subfolder. It's on the desktop. It's somewhere I can find quickly, and so that's where I'm going to put it. So I've got to set up where I'm going to put it, and I would always put it somewhere outside of my Lightroom catalog, so I can find it. I use the desktop a lot, which is silly because I'm using an SSD drive and it's very wasteful. But I always put it there because I can find it fairly quickly sometimes. Anyway, so that's where I'm going to put it for the time being. I'm not going to change the name or anything. I'm just going to leave it as it was. I'm not going to do anything with video because it isn't a video. I'm going to look at the settings here now because it's going to be a image for display. I'm going to change it to JPEG. I'm going to set the color space to be suitable for that, which is sRGB. I'm then going to look at the height now because it's going to be a PDI. I want it to be 1920 by 1080. Now that is the size of the screen, not the size of the image. It will fit your image in there, whatever size it is. So in my case, which is 3:2, it will make it 1080 high. It will make it 1640 wide or whatever it is. I'm going to display it on the screen, so it's going to sharpen it for the screen. I could sharpen it for matte paper or gloss paper if I'm going to print it. Again, I'm going to have it. How much do I want it to be sharpened? Well, I always want it nice and sharp because so I always go for high. The metadata I don't want to touch. You might want to you might want to go to extract it all so that nobody can see the metadata, which if you're doing a PDI competition, I use Faststone to look at PDI competitions. If I go off the screen to the right, I can see all the details you've said about it, and quite often the author's tucked in amongst there. So I would get rid of those if that's the case. But in this case, what I want to do is to look at this one here, the watermark, because somebody's been saying I always put my name in there. Now my name is put into a little setting like this one here, whereas you try the format. It's going to be a PNG or a JPG, doesn't really matter. The script you like to use, I use Sago script, which gives me this nice little script at the bottom here. Regular style, I put it on the left. You can put it left, center, or right, depending where you want to put it. The color, I always use white, although it's not always appropriate. I give it a shadow because then if there is some white area, it'll still stand out. A bit of an offset so it stands out of that corner. I'll move it just over a little bit more. So that's just moved it to the right a little bit. The radius and the angle at 90 degrees. If I wanted to go up the side there, I could change that angle. I don't, so I'm just going to say save. And it's going to be new script. Create, and then when I go to export, up at the top here it may flash. There we are, exporting one file. You can export as many as you like, and then when I go into my file coronavirus sports, which I said is on here somewhere, there we are. I did find it, surprise surprise, it'll be in here somewhere. Oh, I forget, there's a lot of files in here now. So what we're looking for a Rhino. I know what I'll do. I'll go back in here. It's 8040. I'll search for 8040. And there it is with the white line and my name at the bottom there, all sorted out in one go. Now, if you're doing prints, obviously, or you're doing PDIs, you don't want your watermark on it. If you're putting it on the internet or something like that, it always pays you to put something like that on it, I think. So that was just a quick bit on that one for you.
Yep. Well, that's been very informative, and I think that the members will certainly have gained something from that, and hopefully there's lots of different things for different people. I can see that's clear, Brian. So is it gin?
It's water.
Thanks.
Surprising enough, when I say I have a beer, it's a non-alcoholic one, so it doesn't make any difference, does it?
That's right. No, thank you very much indeed. That's been greatly appreciated. There's lots of people just now typing. They're all popping up. Thanks ever so much. Thank you from lots of people. So very informative evening. A lot of information to take in. Just for our members, don't forget though that the video is still there for you to go back and have a look at. So, do go back. You can jump backwards and forwards to the bits that you want to see that Brian's been talking about. I think if you can teach yourself the actions, it really will save you a hell of a lot of time. It is a good simple thing to do, and once you've done, don't try and get too complicated with your first action. Just do what Brian did. Say, I don't know, a bit of sharpening, bit of brightening, and a white line around the edge.
I guess a good one to do is the white line around the edge, because that's the pain in the bum to have to go back into Lightroom and do it. So once you've created that, it's in, click, and out again.
Yeah.
And that is good. I mean, the other thing is it's worth building your own presets in Lightroom as well. That's worth looking at sometime.
Yeah. And you can put them into categories and everything else in the action section as well. So, right. Thank you very much, Brian, and we'll say thank you very much to all of the members for watching this evening. And as I say, I hope you've all learnt something from it. I have, certainly, and it just clicks your mind now and again to see different things. So thank you very much, and we will see you all next week. So thanks for now, take care, and a good week, although it's going to be a wet one. Cheers for now.